So welcome to my YouTube channel. Now that's what we call the good life. Today I'm going to be talking about all the jobs you can be doing in your home garden or your allotment in the month of April. Now if you've not already done so, if you could please subscribe to my channel, because you'll get lots of helpful hints and tips all throughout the year from my home garden, my allotment, and from time to time my home kitchen. So first of all, I'm going to start off with the seedlings I've been starting off. So I've got some over here. I've got two stages. I've got the first lot of seedlings that I started off in February, which I've now potted on, and the ones I started off in last month. So if you just take a look at what I've got here, I was really surprised how much they'd grown actually, because at first I really didn't think any of my seedlings from February germinated really well, but I potted on two lots of tomatoes. So I've got Tomtastic and I've got Roma potted on. So Tomtastic and Roma, and I also potted on some Bright Lights chard and kale, and also some marigolds and a couple of chilies over there, and a few other odd ones that I couldn't fit in the other trays. So one of the jobs you need to be doing is, if you're like me and the ones that are in these small trays have got too big, I've potted those on, and then I've got a few more here that aren't quite ready to be potted on yet. I will of course be starting off some more seeds this month, but I'm due to go away for Easter, so I'm going to start them off when I get back, because the person that's going to be looking after them can do with as little as possible to look after. I have got a video that you can watch if you don't know what to sow in April. There's lots of exciting things you could be sowing, and in particular some of the ones I'm most excited about are things like my French beans and my courgettes and my squashes. They're the things I most look forward to starting. So now we're going to head up to the allotment and we'll talk about some of the jobs I'm going to be doing up there. So we're now up at the allotment, and I'm going to go through some of the jobs that you can do, or I've already done, or what I'm going to be doing up here in the coming month. So as we move down, I've already sown one row of potatoes, and if anyone follows me, you'd have seen me partially doing it. I've got another 2 rows to do, which I will do in the coming weeks. You've still got quite a few weeks to be getting your potatoes in, unless you're getting like your first earlies in. But there's, you've got quite a few weeks. I've got some second earlies and some main crop to go in. So as long as I get them in April, then that's fine. So they'll be going in there. So as we move down, there is, believe it or not, some things you can be harvesting now when you say jobs to do, even though it's only, we're coming up to April. There's still some things you can be harvesting. I've got some purple sprouting in there, which I've just started harvesting. So it's taken a while to come, but it often starts to sprout as soon as it starts to warm up. So I've got some purple sprouting in there, which I've already started harvesting. I've got some Brussels, albeit very small ones, but we're eating them already because they're really not going to do an awful lot more now. So I might as well start using them. If you've still got leeks in the ground, you really need to be getting those up, because they will start to bolt if you don't. Mine are already up, and I actually pulled up, my kales were just over here, and I pulled up all my kales and I pulled all the kale off of it, because this time of year, as soon as it starts to warm up, however great it is, it will make your kale bolt. Now they just started to bolt anyway, so it's really good timing. So what I did was I stripped all the leaves off, and obviously composted the stalks. I ate some of it, and I had quite a lot of kale actually, so I shared it with some of my friends, because I don't like wasting anything. So yes, if you've still got leeks, if you've still got kale, you really need to get them up, because they're not going to last much longer. The purple sprouting obviously will carry on sprouting for several weeks there. They'll be there quite happily, just doing what they do. So another job you can be doing, if you've not already done it, is putting in your onion sets, whether they're normal onions or shallots. I've got mine in. The only reason I've got cover on it is just to merely stop the birds from pulling them out of the ground, not for any other reason. Just once I see they've started to shoot, which means they would have rooted into the ground, I'll take that off and I won't leave the cover over it. But we often have trouble with birds nipping them out, and I have a job of them putting them all back in again. So yeah, that's definitely a job you really must be doing in April, getting your onion sets in, otherwise you're really pushing it. It could be a little bit too late. Something else you could be doing, if you've not already done it, is if you've started any beetroot or carrots off straight into the ground, or wherever you've done them, if they're thin them out if they're growing too densely. I personally haven't started any off yet. I normally wait until May before I put my beetroot and my carrots out, because it's too cold up at the allotment. I don't get very good germination. But if you've sown them somewhere where you've got some good germination, because it's a little bit milder, a bit more shelter spot at home maybe, then you can thin those out. That's a job you can be doing. So another job you could be doing is you could be planting some asparagus crowns or some Jerusalem artichokes. So if that's something that you would like to get out, this month is a really good month to do that. So a job which we all love is weeding. So as we just head over here, as you can see, the garlics are doing really, really well, as are my overwintering onions, but so are the weeds as well. It's really great because obviously the days are getting longer and it's really starting to warm up, and that's really fantastic for us to be able to get lots of jobs done. But the weeds also really like it as well. So keeping check on all your weeds is really, really important. So that's a job that I do need to be doing in the next month. Another reason why I keep ground cover down, because obviously all this has been dug over. If it wasn't covered, the weeds would start growing really quickly. If you look at some of my surrounding plot holders actually, where they've not got their ground covered, they're going to have to get all that grass and all those weeds out. So when I lift this ground cover up, I won't have any of that. I'll obviously give it a little bit of a dig over just to soften the ground, and I may have the odd weed in there, but ground cover makes such a big difference. And I know some people moan about using plastic, but this is plastic that I use year in, year out. I put it down, I lift it up, I put it down, I lift it up. I keep on using it, so it's not a waste in my opinion, and it absolutely saves me an absolute huge amount of time up at the allotment pulling loads of weeds out. And if you use ground cover like this, it still lets the water go through as well. So I will put a link in the description if you've not got any already, because I really, really do recommend it. So there's a few other things. Already you could have the threat of pests, whether it's bugs, whether it's slugs, whether it's snails. I had one of my followers ask me what I do with slugs and snails. Now it's always a tricky one. Chili pepper in a flour shaker is one I use up at the allotment, because it deters an awful lot of stuff, including slugs and snails. And the other thing is when you've got lots of your module trays at home, if they're in a greenhouse, then lift up the trays and look underneath them, because quite often, most people have probably, most of the stuff they're worried about, the slugs and snails, are things that are in their greenhouse, and what they do is they generally hide underneath the pots and in the trays, and so just regularly check those, and obviously just remove them and take them far, far away from where your seedlings are. Another thing that I've done already, and I can't show you because it's actually back in my home garden, is I started a few peas and broad beans off, and I had them in my summer house. I planted those out. So if you've got any plants and you live in an area of the country where it's reasonably mild like it is in Kent, you can put your peas and your broad beans out. Peas and broad beans can take a little bit of frost, just not really, really heavy frost, so you just have to be a little bit mindful of that. And if you think that there is a risk of it, you could always put a clotch over it, or you could put some fleece over it. But generally, where I am in Kent, it's perfectly okay for me to put them out, but just keep an eye on the weather. With that being borne in mind as well, it's very easy to get complacent. We think it's really nice warm weather, so do be mindful of when you're putting things out. Lots of your seedlings you will need to keep either under cover, basically, like your tomatoes and lots of your other plants that you've started off. You've started off peppers and aubergines and all sorts of other plants. Don't get tricked by the weather, that things are going to be okay if you put them outside. Keep them in for a little bit longer, or obviously if you've got like a greenhouse or something, you can put them there. So I do really hope you've enjoyed listening to my jobs on the allotment for April, and if you've got any questions, please as ever do ask us, because we will answer you, and I'd love to hear what you're doing up your plot or your home garden at the moment as well.